How do students respond to doing this kind of work in a classroom setting, or maybe not a traditional classroom setting?
Well, one of the things they told us about initially was that they have this eco-despair or eco-anxiety. And what I'm really learning from this work is that by being part of a larger movement that's essentially pushing on a ball that's already rolling instead of starting it. They're learning that they're not alone in caring about people and the planet, and that really resonates with them, and I think can keep them hopeful. We make it a point to involve choice, and I think they really feel seen and heard and honored in that work. So often they're told what to learn, and now they're actually asked what they want to learn.
I love that.
And when we interviewed students before about climate anxiety, and they were talking we about that, we really tried to focus our curriculum on solutions.
Yes.
When I got my environmental science degree, we learned all about the problems and nothing about the solutions. So we're really flip-flopping that.
I love to hear that. Yeah, we have the same approach here. It's not always sunshine and roses by the end, but if we don't talk about what we're going to fix, then we just kind of get stuck in this nihilistic wheel of saying everything's on fire. And so I'm glad to hear that your students are getting the chance to learn the problems and also thinking about where their place can be in the solution.
Yeah. And I mean, just this week, I have to say, share a few things.
Yeah.
They said, I can't even believe how much we've done in a few weeks. And I feel that way too. The semester has been a sprint, and it's wonderful. Another student said, this is how school is supposed to feel, which made me sad in a little way too. But also, learning in a different way is helping me to think differently about school. And they're all already planning what they're going to do when the semester ends. Like, how do they keep this work going? And also, can we have an alumni retreat? They're planning how to come back.
I love
as
that.
a cohort again.
Are there any projects or success stories you'd want to share with us about what students have gotten done or maybe what they're working on now?
So we have our students working on air quality and lead and the engineering projects, but I have to tell you, we just came back from an overnight science-focused field trip to the Ohio State Stone Lab, which is basically a little island that you have to get to by boat, and it's a field station. So it's a little bit like set back in time, but real climate and work around our lake is happening there. And, on the ride back, we reminisced a little, and they remarked about how everyone has different gifts and different interests and unique ways of approaching the world. And, these are words from high school students. They are so much more capable than we think they are. But out of that, I think we have a future field biologist and two who definitely won't be field biologists. But I think that's important for them. They're thinking about careers and exploring what that looks like for them in the future. And their consensus for their favorite memory was not the water sampling, which I thought was really cool, or the snake lessons, which we actually got to see some Lake Erie water snakes.
Amazing.
Did you know that one woman successfully got that Lake Erie water snake removed from the endangered species list?
That's amazing.
And her name's escaping me now, and
we can always add it to the show notes later.
Okay, that would be great. On a wall of scientists that had studied there she was with the snake, and like what an impact the students got to learn about. But their highlight was actually the 3-hour bonfire that happened because one of our students who's a Boy Scout taught us all how to cultivate a fire and kept it going. And then, one student brought a book of really deep conversation starters. And so the girls took part in their own circle without us planning it, taking turns to just listen to each other with empathy and intention. They were laughing and crying and, taking photos and like truly being part of a community of change makers. And just, it just made me think about how do we, as they were cultivating the fire, how do we, in our change making, make sure that we keep our own flame going and don't burn out?
Yeah.
And I think it's those moments of community that keep us going.
Well, speaking of keeping the flame going, I want to hear about that from you as well. In our last few minutes together, I'd love to talk more about how you got into this work. We've talked a lot about what the work means to you at Laurel, and I love hearing about how the students are interacting with with all the field work, but how did you get into doing this kind of thing?
So, well, I mean, my first memory of knowing I cared more about the environment than others was in elementary school. I was passing around petitions, and then it wasn't really until I started studying my degree in environmental science at the University of Miami in Florida that I learned about Superfund sites. So I put in my address, and I realized that I grew up about a mile from a Superfund site, which if you don't know what that is, it's just identified as one of the most toxic areas. And, it really made sense for me because I watched folks around me struggle with cancer and Alzheimer's and chronic disease. And, I grew up thinking that the sky was red at night for everyone. So in that moment, I realized that I had a special responsibility to and that's, I think, where environmental justice came in. And I didn't even know about that term at the time.
Sure.
So that's how I really got started. And, as a teacher, just leading nature clubs and teaching about climate change, I realized I have a lot. There's still a lot to do. I have a lot of work to do. And I would like to go back to my hometown, which is Lorain, Ohio. Shout out to Lorain, which is revitalizing and has cleaned up a lot. And it's headed in a good direction.
That's good. Well, something like the EJ didn't exist when you were young and you were finding this activism in yourself. So what were some of the ways that you started taking steps? And I would also be curious if there are ways that you think something like the environmental justice semester could have bolstered that for you.
Oh, I say all the time that this is the semester that I wish I had growing up. And I do have to say that part of the reason why I said yes to helping build this program was my daughter, who is already a vegetarian at 8, she, and cares deeply about the environment. So we're building this for the future, including, my own future. But I think the way that I got started into activism and really the activism that kind of moves the needle and changes policy was when I started taking an interest in just the PTA at my kids' school. And I learned about how change is made from within and community organizing and all of that. So, these days I have a balance between engaging in the democratic process at the national and state level by commenting on legislation and campaigns, by showing up at critical board meetings and giving comment, by supporting local park renovations. But, I also do what I can to raise my kids in the most sustainable way and be a role model for them.
Yeah, well, you're certainly doing the work, both through your everyday job and also through how you're choosing to raise your kids and live your life. So I have to say I'm so inspired by hearing you today, hearing about what this means for the next generation of climate scientists and activists, or even just informed citizens, but also seeing the passion coming out of you as you talk about what this means for students, but also for us as a community. So thank you so much for coming and talking with me today. It's been really wonderful. How about we let everybody know how they can keep up to date with you, the environmental justice semester, and also all things green in the future? Awesome.
Great.
If you'd like to stay connected to us, be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at One Planet Media. That's ONE1. And if you'd like to rewatch full episodes, check out our YouTube channel, All Things Green Show. You can find all of our sources from today's episode in our show notes. Angela, if you have anyone that you want to shout out or anything you'd like to plug, now would be the time to do it.
Yeah, I'd like to say that application season starts soon for high school girls entering 10th and 11th grade from any school in Northeast Ohio. If you'd like to learn more about the environmental justice semester at Laurel, you can visit laurelschool.org/environmental justice and follow us on Instagram at Laurel EJ Semester. The EJ Semester link will be in the notes today, and if you'd like to contact me, you can reach out to me at my email address found on our website.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us today. It's been wonderful to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome.